Sim. Thank you all for coming. You all look lovely this morning. I'm glad all of us have our masks on. COVID-19 is real. And if you're not having your mask on, maybe you can put it on. Housekeeping rules, social distancing. We've tried to make sure that we are all safe. Thank you all for coming this morning. My name is Solomon Serwanja, and I am a journalist. I've done 12 years in the game, and I am the executive director of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism. But today I am going to be your host, and so I'm super excited to be here. I wish we had time, we'd pass around the mic for introductions, but I hope that you can take this 1 minute to introduce yourselves to the people around you, get to know what their name is, and where do they come from, what do they have for dinner, how is family. Sometimes we take it for granted, you sit with someone on the table and you don't even know their names. So kindly please, tell someone about you. Ambassador Natalie Brown. I know you, so at least you don't know me. Well, I'm Solomon Serwanja, and I'm happy to be here. I do the English Bulletin at 9 o'clock on NBS. So I'm super excited to be here. Honestly, none of you is talking to each other, so I'm just going to select you out to tell me your neighbor's name. Sir, good morning. Do you know your neighbor's name? Okay, what is the name? What is his name and what does he do? And what is his name? You see that? You did not pay particular attention to the instructions. All right. A very good morning once again. Thank you so much for coming. Today we're here. Here's David. You saw it somewhere, didn't you? Or you got out the card again. Welcome once again to the launch of the annual Press Freedom Index Report 2020. And today is the first day of April 2021. We are here at the Hilton Garden Hotel in Kampala. And this report has really been hard work that has been taken months of hard work to document some of these key issues. And I'm sure that the report goes to the core of how the freedom of expression and the freedom of the press has been affected in this country. I'm a journalist, and I was here, particularly during the elections. And for the folks who are here, who were here during Uganda's elections, it's really disheartening what the media in Uganda has been going through. Very tough times, I should say. We saw journalists beaten. The other day I visited Ashraf Kasirye, who is a journalist who was hit by, I don't know if it's a tear gas canister or something that hit his head, and he was bleeding to death. And I went and visited him in hospital, and he speaks 1 or 2 words and he says, "Solo, what did I just say to you?" So he has memory loss. He's been really going through a hard time with his family. He needs support. He's not working. He's back home with his family and children. He's just getting support from a few organizations and friends to help sustain his family. I visited Daniel Lutaya, who keeps telling me he's scared every time the dog barks. He doesn't know what is happening. Maybe they are looking for him. It's really been hard for the press in Uganda for the last couple of months. And so to speak, such events today that document these gross human rights violations committed against the media are greatly appreciated, that lest we forget, because lots of things happen, and then along the way we forget, we move on. Right now we are discussing the vaccination. We are so much buried into, how the economy is recovering and preparing for the swearing in of the next leaders. And so we've moved on so fast, and yet we forget the very things that happen to us, especially the press. And the men and women who did these violations are walking on our streets and living amongst us. And so for me, I'm excited as a journalist, but also as a team leader of an organization and a friend to HRNJ, that this is really appreciated. So thank you to the team that has taken time to really document these issues and to tell us where we are as a country in terms of our press freedom. And so without any further ado, I want to invite the board chairperson of HRNJ to give us opening remarks. And let me invite Julius Esegu to come and officially welcome the guests. Let's give him some love. Julius, you're welcome, and we are super excited about this report. A special thank you to all of those who are watching us online, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, for this event. We will be certainly getting your views and comments later on after the report has been presented. Julius, you're welcome.
Thank you. Solomon, thank you. Thank you so much. For those who usually watch you from wherever they are, they make a lot of comments about you, some of which I will not share with you, but probably later. Our chief guest, the Ambassador Natalie E. Brown, the representative of the Editors Guild, who is present here, a team from EU, I'm sure, is well represented here. Dr. Rukare, I don't know how to describe him, but he's a true friend of HRNJ Uganda. You're welcome. The Media Council representative that is present here. Colleagues and journalists who are present here, who do the donkey work of ensuring that this country keeps informed, and the board, the HRNJ Uganda board that is represented here, who are actually my colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name, like he has mentioned, is Julius Esegu. I don't need to talk about where I come from, but I'm a Ugandan. That's the most interesting part. Yeah, now, I'm sure you have a copy of this, or if not, obviously, the team at the back end will be in position to share with you, or a copy. Now, since 2009, the Press Freedom Index report has consistently and ostensibly documented violations and abuses against individual journalists and media institutions, thereby contributing to a growing awareness of the existence of these desecrations and to the realization that they must not be allowed in a democratic dispensation. A lot happened in this country. A lot has continued to happen or to take place in this country. But the people who mostly face this brand are members of the media. And therefore, today is a very special day that we again join hands together in launching the Press Freedom Index Report 2020. Now, the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, as amended, recognizes and protects press freedoms as part of the fundamental right to freedom of expression. It also protects the right of journalists to exercise their profession. Although, most times, this is curtailed in various ways. All this notwithstanding, the enjoyment of freedom of the press is far from becoming a true reality in Uganda, given the increasingly shrinking space through visible and invisible manifestations. Most worryingly, at the hands of those charged with the duty to protect and secure Ugandans. That is the security. They have often talked about, there's a common phrase now, securing the future. And the question is, are journalists part of this future that is being secured? Maybe that is something to ponder about. Now, the 2020 Press Freedom Index report is the 12th of its kind to be produced in Uganda. and notably by Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda. The report seeks to build on previous findings, establish trends, and to report on the general state of press freedom in the country during a given year. And this particular edition is in respect to 2020. The report has the following specific objectives: to provide credible evidence for advocacy on safety of journalists and identify priority and/or emerging media safety needs for intervention by relevant stakeholders. And I'm sure we're all stakeholders in this respect. To study and analyze quantitatively the data about violations and abuses of media freedoms for the year 2020, so as to establish main trends on press freedoms by looking at political, social, technological, and economic factors. To identify and highlight key press freedom violations and abuses, their perpetrators, as well as victims. And at the back of your mind, when we talk of perpetrators, I'm sure you have some conclusions derived. To show through qualitative, in-depth interviews and personal testimonies the impact of violations and abuses on journalists and the practice of journalism generally. To explore the working conditions of journalists as an emerging factor in the discourse on freedom of expression in Uganda. To make recommendations to relevant stakeholders on the way forward. The methodology. The development and compilation of the 2020 Press Freedom Index report relied on a combination of research methods. Initially, a desk review excuse me, of primary sources of literature was undertaken mainly to understand the laws and regulations relating to the exercise and protection of press freedoms in Uganda. Some of the laws reviewed in this respect include the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995, as amended, the Press and Journalists Act, the Penal Code Act, that is CAP 120, and then Uganda Communications Act, 2013, as amended. The various regulations passed under each of these laws were also considered in the review. In this same measure, the review took into consideration regional and international human rights instruments that Uganda is party to. These include the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and then the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Still, as part of methodology, secondary sources of literature constituting of newspaper articles and press freedom reports were reviewed to provide context and understanding of the exercise and enjoyment of press freedoms in practice. For this same reason, in-depth interviews were conducted with key individual members of the media fraternity, industry regulators, owners of media houses, individual journalists, and media rights practitioners, media rights promoters and defenders, politicians, academia, and members of the greater public. More importantly, the compilation of the report greatly relied on the database of press freedom violations reported and documented by the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda during the year 2020. On my own behalf, and on behalf of the board and the entire Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda, let me thank all persons who have continuously and relentlessly supported Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda in advocating for a free press in Uganda. In the same measure, we salute all journalists and media practitioners who continue to endure violations and abuses in the exercise of their right to freedom of expression and the practice of the profession. On a more profound note, I want to thank all our esteemed funding partners, including but not limited to Freedom House. I talked about Dr. Rukare. I can talk about him the entire day. Yeah, sure. Freedom House Uganda, under Rights and Justice Activity, IFEX, OSF, DGF, we all know what has been happening. Anonymous, Oxfam, under the Voice Project, for the financial support which has steered HRNJ Uganda this far in advocating for and promoting the rights of journalists and press freedoms in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to me. And most of all, once again, allow me welcome you to this launch in a very special manner. I thank you for God and my country.
Julius Esegu, who is the board chairperson at RHNJ. Thank you very much for your remarks. Let me now invite Dr. Donald Rukare, who is, of course, from Freedom House, to come and give his remarks. You're welcome, Dr. Donald Rukare. Let's give him some love, good people.
Good morning to all of you. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the United States of America to Uganda, Natalie Brown, and your team from the embassy, the representative of the European Union delegation to Uganda, heads of civil society groups here present, the HRNGen team led by my good friend Robert and the board chair, Julius, and your team that does a lot of the frontline work, my colleagues from the civil society realm, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank HRNGen, or Human Rights Network for Journalists, who have invited us to make a few remarks at the launch of their 12th Press Freedom Index for the year 2020, which is being launched under the theme, Media in the Face of COVID-19 and Elections. I did not emphasize what COVID-19 has done for many of us who have had a personal interaction with COVID-19, and we look forward to bouncing back as soon as it blows over. I would like to commend HRNGen for its unwavering commitment and resolve in publishing its annual Press Freedom Index. It's the 12th edition, and we at Freedom House, previously under the USAID Rights and Rule of Law program, were happy to be associated with HRNGen and support, I think it was the 9th, 10th, 8th, and 11th editions, not this year. But under the current Rights and Justice program, we are happy to be associated with HRNGen, who are working on issues of advocacy to ensure that Ugandans are able to live, and particularly media people, in a safe and enabling environment. So we value the relationship we have with HRNGen and look forward to this continued collaboration to be able to secure fundamental freedoms and also the right to associate and expression. The annual Press Freedom Index that we have come here today is a much awaited report, and we hope that HRNGen can stay the course in publishing this invaluable homegrown index that examines and documents experiences, threats, and instances of attack that the media faces in Uganda. The importance of a homegrown index cannot be overemphasized. Uganda has a fairly robust media landscape that has grown over the years with several FM radios, private TVs. For those of us, Solomon, you didn't grow up in Idi Amin's time. We used to have on a UBC, but I'm sure people like Robert remember. It would begin at 6 o'clock p.m. and end at midnight. Now you watch 24-hour access. So there's no doubt that Uganda has moved quite a bit, and we commend the government for this and the various actors with a very many TVs, social media landscape. However, over the last 12 months, and I think it was about 27th of March, Uganda has been struggling through the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, as well as going through the 2021 general election. The media, through this period, has had its own set of experiences and challenges. We celebrate the journalists and the frontline people and media houses in Uganda for your constant demonstration of resilience, and I like the title of resilience, in the face of challenges such as the shrinking operating environment, continued harassment. Solomon talked about the actual practical examples of some of your colleagues and what they're going through. And while the media was deemed as an essential sector or service during COVID and right now, you continue to face these instances of harassment, injury, stringent accreditation requirements, and loss of limb, hopefully not life as yet. It's regrettable, and we hope that those responsible are held to account. The internet shutdown during and post-election period severely curtailed access to information and the operations of the media. We have seen continued threats to revoke licenses and the calling for the suspension of specific journalists, surveillance, and I'm sure even in this room there are some people who are surveilling us at the moment, but we shall keep on to persevere, notwithstanding. But these tend to curtail the operations of the media. Despite the anxiety, concern, and worry that was and is associated with COVID-19, we believe that we together with the media shall remain resilient and upbeat and emerge stronger as a media subsector. We're very happy to note that just the other day, there was the beginning of creating of a media subsector, and we look forward to that initiative that was being initiated by some others like the African Media for Media Excellence, HRNGen. I hope that subsector will blossom and grow. There is need for a responsible media as well as restraint by the security agencies, especially the police, when it comes acting against the media. There is absolutely no justification for the kind of actions we saw, for example, when people of the media were being beaten by members of the military police. And therefore, we call upon the security agencies, and some of them are in this room. We look forward to engaging with them during the panel to find a constructive way forward to ensure that the media is able to operate free from restraint, harassment, and attack. We welcome that HRNGen is chronicling these experiences and challenges, and we look forward to reading the report. The media space in Uganda, while growing, as indicated, and we commend that, has been rated by our own agency, Freedom House, as not free. Uganda is rated in the Freedom of the World report also as being ranked 125 out of 180 countries. And in our recent media and media report, Freedom House points that freedom has been deteriorating around the world over the past decades. Even in some of the most influential democracies in the world, populist leaders have overseen concerted efforts to throttle the independence of the media sector. Reporters Without Borders notes in its recent report that the coming decade will be decisive for the future of journalism, with the COVID-19 pandemic highlighting and amplifying the many crises that face the right to freely report independent, diverse, and reliable information. We therefore call upon the government, security agencies, the regulator, that's the Uganda Communications Commission, to commit to ensuring that the media is able to operate freely without undue influence, intimidation, or harassment. At the same time, we would like to urge the media to report in an ethical and responsible manner. The role of fake news, Robert, I think is still something we need to discuss as a country, and therefore the ability of you journalists who are playing an important role to report freely on matters of public interest is a critical indicator of the depth of democracy. I would like to thank HRNGen, who have worked tirelessly in ensuring that this index is prepared and launched, and this launched in the 12th edition, and we look forward to reading the findings and recommendations. I thank you very much and wish you all a happy Easter and look forward to our continued relationship with HRNGen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Donald Rukare, for your remarks. Interesting what you said, that yes, the media landscape is growing, and yet there's a shrinking media space. So I think that's the irony. All right, guys, let's dive into it. Let me invite Mr. Sempala Robert, who is the Executive Director of HRNJ, to come and talk to us about this report in detail so that we can consume and feed off his palms to understand what the Press Freedom Index Report 2020 is all about, after which we will invite Ambassador Natalie Brown to launch the report, give her remarks, and then we will distribute a few copies, and then we'll have a plenary discussion, and then we'll have also a panel discussion, and I'll gladly release this audience. All right, Mr. Robert Sempala, you're welcome to give us the detail of the report. Let's give him some love. Robert, you're welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning once again. Good morning, my esteemed colleagues from the media. Good morning, members of the diplomatic corps here. Good morning, my friend Don Rukare and Jill, right there next to Don. Good morning, esteemed members of the board of HRNJ, led by our able and charismatic leader, Mr. Julius Esegu from Soroti, the land of, you say the land of the wise? Good morning to the editors here present and the leadership of the Editors Guild. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Okelo, who doubles as an advocate. He's a journalist. He's not a jack of so many trades, but he's multi-talented in so many things. Your Excellency, the Ambassador, who is our chief guest today, and all members present. My name is Robert Sempala. I am the team leader at the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda, HRNJ Uganda, which was founded in 2005, of course, amidst a deteriorating operating environment for the media, and some journalists thought that we needed a central voice that would crusade and amplify the voices of the media practitioners. And so here we are, now here to launch a 12th edition of a locally generated Press Freedom Index, the only one of its kind in our midst as a country. I want to say thank you so much to all that have made this possible. Mainly our funding partners. Over the years, it would never have been possible without your support. Notably, of course, Freedom House, Don is here, like my chairperson said. He fails sometimes to know how to describe him because he's become our friend. Of course, not to compromise him in making sure that we deserve the Freedom House support. USAID has supported us for a long time. Open Society Foundation for Eastern Africa, OSEA, and now Open Society Foundations. International Freedom of Expression, IFX, based in Canada. The National Endowment for Democracy, and NED. DGF, our esteemed partners, DGF, the Democratic Governance Facility, who are unable to join us today because of what is happening between them and the government. We hope that this impasse will be resolved more amicably in the shortest time possible, because it has had a lot of impact, negative one, on our operations as HRNJ, but the wider civil society in the country, and of course the work that civil society does. My friend Gilbert Sendugo of AFIC here will tell you how they have been affected. Colleagues from URN will tell you, everyone that has been a beneficiary of the DGF will tell you that we've been hit so hard because of this impasse. And ours is to pray that it is resolved in the shortest time possible. The anonymous, the people we don't know, we call them anonymous, for supporting us, and everyone that has made this possible. We last came here when we were launching a report of this nature called The Watchdog, Braving Hostility to Serve. And here was one of our colleagues, Alex A. Sagala of the Daily Monitor, being roughed up. Today, we come to launch yet another edition of the same report, which will be unveiled to all of us in the shortest time possible. I will present to you the report in a summary form, a summarized form. But before, I need to recognize my colleague from the EU, who is supposed to have a seat here, Mr. Cathal. You're most welcome. Somebody will lead you to where I am, because we need to sit very close to the EU for obvious good reasons. When you sit you're seated close to me here, I know that you'll be picking up everything we're saying, and at the end of the day, we might have a very fruitful conversation over these issues. We begin with a quote which reads, and you find it in the report: "We have been beating you journalists to restrain you from going where there is danger. Police beat journalists to help them for their own safety. When a police officer tells you to stop, you must stop for your own safety. I won't apologize for police actions. We will continue beating you." Who said that? IGP, 20 points out of 20. You got it right. And he has since not retracted the statement. When we talk of press freedom, dear ladies and gentlemen, It entails the right to publish, to circulate information, thoughts, and opinion without censorship. It is often used interchangeably with media freedom, albeit the latter is much wider in the sense that it goes beyond print media, i.e. newspapers, magazines, the pamphlets, to include other forms of the media, such as those that involve electronic mediums of expression, i.e. radio, television, and internet platforms such as blogs and social media sites. This said, both press and media freedoms are derived from the right to freedom of expression, which itself entails the right to receive and impart information, both of which are critical and key components of democracy. The 2020 Press Freedom Index report seeks to build on previous findings, like my board chair has said, and to establish trends of how the media is faring in our country, and to report on the general state of press freedom in the country during a corresponding year, which now is the 2020, like we said it 2020 when it was beginning. In this report, Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda is pleased, ladies and gentlemen, to present to you its 12th edition of the Press Freedom Index report. It is titled Resilience: Media in the Face of COVID-19 and Elections, which outlines the state of media freedom in the country in that year. The report is structured in such a way that it has different chapters, and the first chapter constitutes the introduction and the context of the study. It provides the background to press freedom rights in Uganda, and clarifies on both the methodology and objectives of the 2020 Press Freedom Index report. It has chapter 2, which looks at the legal and institutional framework for press freedom in Uganda. In this respect, the chapter explores national and international legal and policy frameworks for the exercise of press freedom, both as a civil right and as an economic right. The chapter also outlines the laws that seek to regulate the practice of journalism in Uganda, and the extent to which each of these advances press freedoms in practice. Importantly, ladies and gentlemen, the laws reviewed in this chapter provide a basis for the subsequent one on the status of press freedom as gauged from the number of reported violations. We have chapter 3, which looks at the status of enjoyment of the right to freedom of the press in Uganda, and in this respect, the chapter documents the manifestations of human rights violations and abuses committed against journalists and media houses in the year 2020. It also considers the emerging and persistent trends of threats to the practice of journalism in Uganda over the years. Chapter 4 looks at the state of internet freedoms in Uganda. It briefly highlights the legal framework for the enjoyment of internet freedoms. It also explores implications of the UCC directive to all online data communication service providers to register and obtain licenses before they engage in any form of operation. The chapter also assesses the implications of the government of Uganda's move to block several YouTube channels. And we have chapter 5, which is the last in the book, in the report, which constitutes several recommendations to different key actors. In 2020, HRNJ Uganda documented a total of 174 cases of violations and abuses. 9 cases higher than the previous year, 2019, which saw 165 cases, and 11 more than the reported cases in 2018, which stood at 163. The increase of 9 cases may appear minimal. However, and of the statistics points to disturbing trends, especially the gravity of violations perpetrated by security organizations against journalists. Secondly, despite the limited engagement and reduced activity of the media as a result of the coronavirus disease, the number of violations has notoriously remained very high. Thirdly, the Uganda Police Force has once again featured more prominently on the list of press freedom perpetrators. In total, the press freedom violations reported by HRNJ, which stood at 174, of these assaults were the highest. Assaults on journalists were the highest at 69, followed by blocking access to news scenes, which followed at 40 cases, and arrests of journalists, which came third with 29 cases. So 29 journalists were arrested in the year. In addition to this, there were a total of 36 other violations reported. Well, this represents what may appear as just but a slight increase from the 165 reported in 2019. It should be noted that the general state of media freedom deteriorated greatly in the year 2020. Considering the limited engagement and reduced activities, you would expect that there would be almost no cases because people are working from home remotely, and you'd think that there would be no confrontations. But on the contrary, the cases have gone so high. We will break them into two categories, and we'll begin with assaults. Assaults were the highest number of all the total cases reported, and assaults stood at 71. This was a drastic increase from 26 and 37 reported assaults in the year 2019 and the year 2018, respectively. Of the total of 71 assault cases, 42 emanated from election campaigns, 15 were committed during the implementation of the presidential directive on the national lockdown and curfew as part of the measures to limit the spread of COVID-19. Yeah, and the rest of the 14 were from other isolated incidences. It is reported that most of the journalists suffered injuries while covering stories during the national lockdown and in the course of the campaign period. The assaults were perpetrated mainly by the state, though some were by non-state actors. Then blocking access. Cases involving the blockage of access to media houses and for journalists to news scenes constituted the second most violated right in 2020. In total, 40 cases were reported, which was slightly less than the 44 reported in 2019, and the same as were reported in 2018. The cases entailed blocking candidates from access and journalists from covering events. Examples of these include the December 30th arrest of presidential candidate Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert in Kalangala district, where the Uganda People's Defense Forces blocked many journalists, including a few that I can mention here: Abbe Kalubo of the Daily Monitor, Jonah Atusingwire, a reporter with Pearl FM, Ali Mivure, reporter with NTV, among others, from covering the arrest. On the same day, ladies and gentlemen, 3 journalists, to wit, Richard Kalema of Ghetto TV, Geoffrey Mutalia, a freelance journalist, and Mulimira Musa, also a freelance journalist, were arrested and are currently remanded at Chitalia Government Prison. The matter is before the General Court Martial. So we have 3 journalists undergoing trial in the General Court Martial. Then we go to arrests, journalists that were arrested. These were the 3rd highest violations with 29 reported cases. However, the number of arrests registered a decrease from the 36 reported in 2019 and 31 reported in 2018, respectively. Most of the arrests were conducted in the course of the electoral processes when journalists were struggling to cover the candidates contending for political offices. Other violations in the report are 4 journalists with promoting sectarianism because of their work, 2 are confiscated by security personnel, 1 journalist's camera was confiscated during the lockdown, 8 were damaged by the police, Uganda Police Force, here comes again. 2 2 journalists were pepper sprayed at close range in a deliberate show of might. Journalists were shot at. We know Ashraf Kasirye, and we also know Moses Bwayo was shot at on a close range as interviewed Bobby Wine, was fired at from close range. I need to add Ali Mivule, who was also fired at as collateral damage. And 4 journalists were ordered by the police to delete their journalistic material or footage. 1 journalist was attacked by some mob, 5 were threatened, and 2 radio stations that had hosted opposition presidential candidates were switched off on the orders of the security without observing the due process of the law. The report further shows that reporters were the most affected with 124 cases, which represents 72.1% of the total number of violations and abuses, which were an increase from 100 cases, which represented then 60% in 2019. The trend of attacking reporters became apparent in the context of reporting amidst COVID-19 related restriction, and even more so during the heated electoral campaigns. We also have victims of violations and abuse by category in this report as the cases unfolded in 2020. And the report says that a total of 68, which is 39.1% violations and abuses, were recorded against radio stations. 59, which represents 33.9%, were against television stations. 25, which represents 14.4%, against the print media. 20 cases, which represents 11.5%, against online media, and 2 cases, which represents 1.1% against freelance reporters. In comparison, in 2019, the reported violations stood at 46% for television stations, 31% for radio stations, and ladies and gentlemen, let me go to the perpetrators. We have the Uganda Police Force. The Uganda Police Force has, for the 12th year, emerged as the leading violator of press freedom in Uganda. 12th year, when HRNJ started documenting such cases. And approximately 104 cases out of the 174 violations and abuses were recorded to having been caused by members of the Uganda Police Force. We are looking at a record 104 out of the 174 violations and abuses recorded against the Uganda Police Force, which is mandated, of course, to protect the journalists while in the line of duty. Many journalists, while covering the campaign trails of his special opposition political candidates, were arrested, assaulted, tear-gassed, even at close range. Those in branded media vehicles were targeted while covering the rallies, and most of them were putting on press jackets. Some were manhandled and tortured by the Uganda Police Force still. The gravity of the violations committed by Uganda Police Force is so rapidly increasing. A case in point was on December 27th, 2020, when our colleague Ashraf Kasirye, a Ghetto TV journalist, was shot at by the police officers and suffered serious head injuries as a result. Ali Mivule, I mentioned him, of NTV, was equally hit with a tear gas canister on his thigh after the police officer pronounced him as collateral damage in massacre. Number 2, we come to the Uganda People's Defense Forces. The UPDF came second in violations of rights and freedoms of journalists and media houses. A total of 31 violations were recorded, which was higher than those recorded in the preceding 4 years. Most of the violations by the army were as a result of implementing the COVID-19 directives on observance of the curfew, where journalists were caught up in the confusion of arresting persons not observing the directives. Blocking of journalists from filming people who were felling logs from Bugoma Forest Reserve, and the blocking and arrest of journalists who were covering the arrest of Kyagulanyi and his campaign team in Kalangala. That's when the UPDF featured most prominently. Then we also have cases that stemmed from the communities. The community OMOB are also one of the perpetrators of press freedom in Uganda. In 2020, some of the perpetrators included the youth from in Lira district that vandalized a blinded vehicle of NBS TV and injured NBS TV journalists. The journalists covering campaign trails of different candidates were attacked by mobs under the pretext that they did not support their preferred candidates. This new trend of perpetrators is fast growing as observed in the preceding years. There is need to devise means to curtail this rapid growth of this category of attacks. Then we go to another category, which was to do with the immigration department here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Internal Affairs. And the Uganda Immigration deported 3 Canadian journalists on November 27th, 2020. Their names are given in this report. And the allegation was that they breached their visa restrictions they were not accorded an opportunity to be heard. They were accused of covering elections without obtaining appropriate visas. They said they had come as tourists, though the journalists told us that that's how the ministry advised them to obtain those visas and come to Uganda, and the rest will be sorted here with the responsible agencies accrediting them to cover the elections. Then we also had the resident district commissioners, RDCs. The RDCs were also reported among the major perpetrators of press freedom in 2020. Approximately 3 cases were recorded of violations committed on orders of the RDCs, including switching off Busoga One Radio, instructing Spice FM not to host Kyagulanyi Centum, and assaulting of journalists. In relation to this, 13 violations and abuses were committed by the RDCs. Then we looked at the gender perspectives in this report. Approximately 19 cases of violations and abuses, representing 10% of the total cases against female journalists, were recorded in 2020. This is slightly higher than the number of violations which were 10% committed against female journalists in 2019. It is, however, slightly lower than the 12% violations against female journalists in 2018. Meaning that no one is safe at the front line, not even the female colleagues, who would think will attract a lot of courtesy from their intended audiences. Then we went to the locations of these violations. Most of the violations were recorded in the districts of Kampala. We saw 40 cases recorded in Kampala. Lira district, we had 24 cases. Arua district, we had 15 cases. Jinja, we had 12 cases. Luka and Kalangala, we recorded 10 cases in each of the districts. These were all attributed to the actions of dispersing crowds by the security forces, mainly on the campaign trail of presidential candidates, mainly of the opposition. Then in terms of the regions, the Central region recorded the most violations and abuses with approximately 69 cases. Eastern region recorded 30 cases. Western region recorded 28 cases. West Nile with 25 cases, and Northern region recorded 22 cases. So colleagues in the Northern region were fairly safer, though there were cases as recorded in this report. Nonetheless, considering that many of the colleagues or the challenges and restrictions to press freedom in Uganda still abound, this report makes some recommendations, and they are the following. We make recommendations to Parliament of Uganda and the Law Reform Commission to repeal the current laws that impose over-the-top taxes, OTT, on social media. OTT is a major barrier to the enjoyment of press freedom in as far as it restricts journalists, sources, information dissemination, and access to information by members of the public. Yet there is a public's right to information. Moreover, ever since this tax, OTT tax, was introduced, it has failed to achieve the set revenue targets, but has instead served to gag the citizens and their access to information. The existence and reliance on the virtual private networks, VPNs, have also rendered the tax very ineffective. We also recommend that there be set a minimum wage for all employees, including those employed in the press and the media. This will help to resolve economic exploitation of journalists that has rendered most of them vulnerable to unprofessional conduct and exploitative tendencies by their employers. We also want them to pursue and implement urgent reform of obsolete laws that seek to restrict the enjoyment of press freedom, such as the Penal Code Act, Cap 120, in view of the decision of the court in Charles Onyango Obo and another versus the Attorney General, where it was said that any restriction on exercise of press freedom should be demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society. Offenses such as promotion of sectarianism, criminal libel, and publication of statements likely to incite violence do not meet this test and should be struck out of our law books. We also want an amendment to the Press and Journalists Act to remove current unrealistic qualification requirements for accreditation of journalists. And we are proposing that the issue of accreditation should be left to the media houses themselves, and the people seeking to accredit journalists should deal with institutions in the names of media houses. This will promote the practice of journalism and also democracy in our country. And then to government. We want government to extend COVID-related support to media houses and deserving individual media practitioners affected by the pandemic. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that journalists were one of the most hit professionals in this country. They were laid off. They experienced pay cuts. Some of them were forced to walk to their workplaces from home because media houses don't afford an extra cost to transport them from home to media houses when we still had no public transport. Then we have a recommendation to the President and the Judicial Service Commission to urgently establish the Communications Tribunal as envisioned by the framers of the Uganda Communications Act of 2013 as amended. In the absence of such a tribunal, the media has no avenue through which they can seek recourse against decisions of the regulator that they consider arbitrary. And I'm very happy that some of the members of the Uganda Media Sector Working Group are here, and this is one of the areas that we should really address. And the President should also appoint a substantive chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission so as to enable the Commission to perform its full-scale mandate. You know that journalists always run to the Uganda Human Rights Commission to seek redress in case their rights are trampled upon. We have in our midst Mr. Francis Tumwekwasize, who one time read over there and got awards but has never been given many years down the road. And we have a couple of others in this room that have gone there to seek for justice. But now without the substantive head of the commission can only do so much. We also want the President to appoint, we want the President also to demonstrate goodwill for the media, to have positive comments for the media, because his word comes with force of law. It is like telling the rest that go against these media guys, who sometimes the President has jokingly or seriously referred to as rumor mongers, poor chaps, working for the interest of the West, and so many things that in a way put the lives of the practitioners on the line. We have recommendations to the UCC, Uganda Communications Commission, to work to promote and encourage internet freedoms rather than to stifle them. In this regard, UCC should urgently and immediately lift directives for registration of online broadcasts. In the event that there are any communication violations committed by online broadcasters, they should be dealt with in accordance with the laws of Uganda rather than subject all of them to burdensome and unjustified registration procedures. We also want UCC to prioritize and expedite the finalization of the draft Uganda Communications Tribunal, in bracket we put practice and procedure regulations of 2020. These are urgent and necessary for the operationalization of the tribunal established under the Uganda Communications Commission Act to exercise jurisdiction over all decisions related to and made in connection to communication services in Uganda. We also want UCC to allow the press and the media to self-regulate and set their own standards, including those related to online broadcasting. This promotes the spirit of self-regulation by the media, a common and encouraged practice in most democratic countries. Self-regulation is one of the key principles enumerated in the Declaration of Principles on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information that were adopted by the African Commission on the Human and People's Rights in 2019. We also want UCC to refrain from introducing unjustified restrictions with implications for the work of the media late in an electoral process. Most importantly, UCC should consult with all the media and other stakeholders before introducing such onerous compliance requirements. And then we have recommendations to the judiciary to expedite the hearing of and determination of urgent press freedom related cases, especially those that are time bound, including pending constitutional challenges of restrictive media laws, media rights, enforcement cases, and criminal trials against journalists and other members of the press. In 2014, ladies and gentlemen, ourselves together with IAMI and CEPIL went to court challenging sections of the UCC Act. 2014 to date, our matter is gathering dust. So what we wanted to remedy that time is still hanging in balance. Then we have recommendations to security agencies to respect and uphold press freedom and the right of the media to freely express itself. The right of journalists to to practice their profession must at all times be respected and upheld by all, including security agencies such as the police and the army. I started with a quote from the police, which threatened that we were only being beaten in a bid to help us be safe. And somebody joked at my home place where I stay that they pray that one time somebody helps the IGP that way, the way he wants to help the journalists, beating us to help us. And I told the chap to keep quiet. We also want security agencies to quickly investigate reported and all other cases of human rights violations committed against members of the press and members of the security organs, to sit, dialogue, and work amicable ways of resolving their disagreements or our disagreements. We want all those found culpable to be subjected to the due process of the law, disciplinary actions, deterrent sentences to be served, such that we can get some relief from the bosses of these security forces. But also should be tried in accordance with the Human Rights Enforcement Act of 2019. We want the police or security forces to introduce media rights related training in the curriculum of the police and other security agencies. This will go a long way to improve the human rights record of security agencies and hopefully improve the way that they treat journalists. This has always been hanging. If we have one voice here, you'll hear them committing to introduce a revision within their training curriculum, but that has never come to pass for so many years. Then we have a recommendation to the Uganda Human Rights Commission to investigate all cases relating to violations of press freedom, especially those committed by the state and its agents. As part of this initiative, appropriate compensation should be provided to victims in deserving cases. We also want UCC to exercise the mandate bestowed, the Uganda Human Rights Commission to exercise the mandate bestowed on the Commission by the Constitution to defend and promote citizen journalism and internet freedom, both of which are an evolving and important component of freedom of the press and a necessity for any democratic society. Then we have a recommendation to the Independent Electoral Commission of Uganda to make all future electoral processes more open and friendly for the media instead of imposing unjustified restrictions. Like you remember last time, they were really very determined to block journalists from using their cameras on the voting day, but later it changed, of course. We also want them to facilitate the participation of the media and create a conducive environment for journalists to report freely without any harassment on the electoral processes at all levels, including the presidential, parliamentary, and local council levels. Then to our colleagues, the Uganda Journalists Union, Uganda Journalists Association, and the National Organization of Trade Unions, and all other media development organizations in this room and outside of this room, we want them to support members of the media to bring action for punishment, compensation, and personal responsibility against Iran security officials responsible for violations committed against the journalists. To lobby workers' representatives in Parliament to expedite a new minimum wage bill for all employees, including journalists and other media practitioners. This will go a long way in improving the working conditions and welfare of journalists. Then to our esteemed colleagues in the media houses, we want them to respect and uphold the labor rights of journalists and other members of staff employed by media houses. This will go a long way in improving the welfare of journalists and their working environment. It will be a very conducive place to be for the journalists. Above all, to help mitigate against unprofessional conduct of journalists as often occasioned by the economic vulnerabilities. In conclusion, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this report shows that the exercise and enjoyment of press freedom was greatly affected by COVID-19 restrictions imposed by government, namely arresting of journalists, assaulting them during curfew times, and also caused long-term economic effects, which led to layoffs of journalists, failure to pay their salaries, among others. The pushback against these attacks and wanton human rights violations inspired a spirited campaign by journalists, including one time a protest walkout from a security meeting at the Uganda Media Center. And this attracted criticism also from a wider spectrum of actors, including civil society, under the hashtag of journalism is not a crime. We want to thank everybody that came out to defend the practice of journalism. The report notes that the minimum challenge The report notes that the main challenge faced in the Ugandan context is that those who perpetrate abuses and violations of press freedom are hardly brought to book, which has resulted into a culture of entrenched impunity. This situation ultimately has affected the journalists' ability to practice their profession ethically and more efficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a summary of the report that we are about to launch today. I want to conclude by thanking once again everybody that has made it possible for us to compile this report, and all of you that have made it to this very memorable occasion in the lifespan or lifeline of HRNJ when we launch yet another edition that is going to inform conversations around press freedom. I want to recognize one of the members of SEDU, the executive director of SEDU, Charity Mbisiwe, right there. I didn't see you last time. Thank you for making it here. Dr. Sylvia Namubiru, the ED of LASPNet, also sits on the board of SEDU, among others. Thank you so much for paying kind attention to me. But before, I want to introduce to you members of the Secretariat of HRNJ, currently here, and those that are outside. Moses Magola, please stand up for recognition. He heads our programs. Also deputizes the ED of HRNJ, Mr. Kasozi, Michael, Lukanga, a Prince in our finance, Richard next to him, our staff very committed, whoever has come to HRNJ has seen him, our transport officer, Ronald Lukenge, head of legal, Diana Flavio Kia Nandutu. She's outside attending to the desk. Procesha Otogwang, she's equally outside. Where is Maureen? Equally outside. Who else is there that I can't see? Who is at office? Thank you very much for making this possible. Of course, recognize Moses Bule. He was not around when we introduced our esteemed members of the board. Let me kindly ask members of our board to stand up for recognition, that recognition. Members of our board. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you indeed for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let's give Mr. Sempala some love. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. I was listening keenly to this report, and what really caught my eye was that police, for the 12th time in a row, still leads in violations against, journalists. And I was just thinking, out of the 174 cases, the police has committed 104 cases. That's absolutely crazy. And the other thing that really caught my attention is that 71 of the cases were assault cases, and this rose up from 26 cases in 2019. You know what really annoys me is that many of the men and women who have been captured on camera, sometimes on live TV, sometimes, I'm in studio, and I actually salute every journalist who is on the front line. If you're a journalist and you're in this place, kindly stand up and we salute you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the men who are always on the front line collecting news, and some of us sometimes who are in studio enjoying the SE and the lights and the glamour and the cameras, sometimes we forget these people who actually are on the front line. So sometimes we see this footage that is coming on our TVs, and you're thinking, is this really happening in this country? And sometimes it is recorded on live television. So sometimes I ask, what are police officers thinking? Because you're recording it on live TV, and you're continuing to beat journalists. Like, I've never understood that. But you see, this is what is disturbing. And Mr. Sempala, perhaps this is where we need to really go hard on this. The men and women who have committed these atrocities continue to walk on our streets without being brought to book. I think that we need to go beyond just leaving this on paper to actually identify the security officers who committed these atrocities and hold them personally liable for these crimes that they have committed. And sometimes they hide under the uniform of the police. They put on masks. I was reviewing footage last time. They put on masks, they put on headgear, they put on black shades, and then they put on jackets to hide the names on their uniforms, and they continue doing these things, and it's disturbing. So I believe that these people can be identified and they can be held accountable for these actions. And this is just from me as my reaction to the report. Let me now invite Your Excellency, the U.S. Ambassador Natalie E. Brown, to come and make her remarks. After that, I will invite a couple of people for the launch of this report. Your Excellency, Ambassador Natalie Brown, you are very welcome. Let's give Ambassador Brown some love. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I guess we have enough distance so I can do this safely. Thank you. Distinguished journalists, HRNJ members and leadership, Media Council of Uganda, Dr. Ricari and Freedom House, my diplomatic colleagues, friends, all protocols observed, good morning. I'm deeply honored to participate in this important event to underscore the vital role that a free press plays in democracy. Journalists shine a light on not only the many challenges and cruelties that are all too common in our lives, but also on the stories that inspire and sustain us, particularly in difficult times such as the past year. And this past year with the COVID-19 pandemic has upended all of our lives, and the media sector has not been immune to this upheaval. As we just heard, this has been a difficult period for many Uganda media outlets, with staff facing layoffs or uncertainty about their job prospects in a profession they love. And our thoughts are with our media colleagues as they weather this economic uncertainty. But as media navigate these challenging times, it is our duty to highlight the absolutely essential role they play in fostering an open society. The benefits of a free press and media cannot be underestimated. Journalists give all of us the opportunity to know more about ourselves, about our communities, about our countries, about governments, and our shared world. Journalism gives voice to the voiceless. It empowers citizens to engage in the lives of their community and exposes injustice. This makes us better. This makes us stronger. Journalists promote transparency. They are fact finders. They are truth tellers. They inform the public on issues critical to their country's future. They introduce new ideas and individuals working to change the world. And they produce powerful stories that hold governments, institutions, and influential individuals accountable. For all of these reasons, journalists should be able to carry out their responsibilities without fear of violence or retribution, because journalism is not a crime. No matter the reasons, when journalists are attacked, individuals begin to self-censor. Fear replaces truth, and all of our societies suffer. A culture of impunity for such actions must not be allowed to persist in any country. Yeah, and as we heard, we only have to look at the very recent past. Just since my arrival at the end of October, we've seen repeated incidents of harassment against Ugandan journalists who have been threatened, beaten, arrested, detained, had their credentials canceled, their equipment confiscated or destroyed. Their crime? Doing their job. So let me be clear, the challenges to press freedom in Uganda are not unique. On the contrary, press freedom is under attack in countries in every region of the world. And even the United States is not immune to such challenges. As I noted after the January 6th attack on the US Capitol, when the United States speaks out against human rights abuses, we do so not because such abuses do not occur in America. Regrettably, they do. And when we speak out for press freedom, we do so not because American journalists are free of harassment. For example, just last year in Iowa, in an area close to where I grew up, a reporter was prosecuted for covering the Black Lives Matter protest, and she was prosecuted for doing her job. Fortunately, a jury took a stand for press freedom and acquitted her early this month. So when the United States, when we speak out, we do so precisely because we know how fragile these rights and freedoms are, and because America's history has taught us that these ideals must be defended if they are to endure. So this is why I applaud HRNJ Uganda's work. When reality falls short of what is enshrined in Uganda's constitution, that every person shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, including freedom of the press and the media, organizations like HRNJ Uganda have taken on the responsibility to defend these rights. But the responsibility is not theirs alone. Everyone, each and every one of us, at every level, we have the responsibility to protect journalists in the course of carrying out their duties. So when HRNJ Uganda and its human rights journalists strive to bring us breaking news and thoughtful exposés to create a nonviolent, corruption-free and human rights-observing society, let us support their mission by standing up for journalists to effectively exercise their constitutional rights and fundamental freedoms. So to the reporters, the editors, the photographers, and camera persons in the room today, thank you. Thank you for what you do every day under difficult circumstances to keep us informed and to bring us closer to realizing our democratic ideals. To the human rights defenders and civil society practitioners in the room, thank you for standing up for both your colleagues in the media and for press freedom, regardless of the consequences for your own safety and security. Democracy is not for the passive or faint of heart. It requires action. It requires bravery. And I'm honored to be in the company of so many brave journalists today and their supporters. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for those remarks. Would pretty much love to remain with a copy of your statement just for reference purposes for this event. We're now officially going to be launching the book, and I would request the following. Mr. Sempala, where are we going to be? Where is the... Can you help us an organizer, please? Or where is it? Is it this one? Okay. Can I have someone from HRNJ to come and help? All right, meanwhile, I'll invite Your Excellency Natalie Brown to come back again. I'll also invite, for the launch, I'll ask Dr. Roswithe Cresa, who is the head of Australian Embassy Development Corporation in Uganda, to also come. I'll invite Dr. Donald Rukare from Freedom House to also come for the launch. I'll also invite the board chair of HRNJ, Julius Esegu, to also come, as well as Mr. Okello from the Media Council of Uganda to also come, so that we can launch this report officially. I don't know how we're going to do this. Do we have enough space for people? Yeah, I think that's better. Great. As we're still sorting this, I'll maybe rush you through our next program. After the launch, we'll have a tea break of about 10 minutes, and then we'll be back for a panel discussion. And then later on, we'll close this event at about 11:30. So kindly bear with us for this. All right, I hope that is steady enough. Great. Let me invite the people I called up to come officially and launch the report. Yeah, please, and then we'll have the photo op. Yeah. So right there, and of course, Mr. Sempala to also come. Do we have okay? Can we just come in front there, and then do we need to sign on that report? Can we have a marker, please? Mr. Sempala, you want to have a microphone? Do we have a handheld mic, please? The PA guys. Can we shake a leg?
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of our maiden occasions. And people standing here all deserve to be here, just like the rest of you that side. But because of social distancing, we chose to pick a few, like we are here. You have the marker, so each of us is going to sign on to this report, and we are going to issue out Diana copies to a few colleagues here. And to do that, I'll let the ambassador sign on as a show of the launch of the report. You can sign anywhere. I'll invite the ambassador of the U.S. Embassy in Kampala signs on to the report as a show of the very launch. This is the very occasion for which we invited all of you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very memorable occasion for us as an organization to launch another edition of our Press Freedom Index report. And we know that certainly the recommendations extremely matter. She will pass it on to, equally in the same league of the ambassadors, she's the most deserving to invite the ambassador of Austria to equally join the ambassador of the US in launching this particular report. I'll invite after her Dr. Don Rokale to join in signing on this report as a witness to the launch. So Freedom House is ably represented here in this launch. I'll invite next Mr. Okelo Jabwel from the Media Council of Uganda, a media colleague and journalist, to come and sign on to this. Then after him, he must be a rich man. Rich people sign just so simply. Mr. Julius Esegu, my board chairperson, to come forward and append a signature. Then the Editors Guild, Mr. Tahiri, please step forward. I'm inviting Solomon, known as the MC, to equally witness this because he has MC'd it, so it's only prudent that he witnesses the launch of the report. Mr. Alex Tahiri as he comes. I also invite the ED of LASPNet, Dr. Sylvia Nambiru, to come and sign on to this. After her, Serwanja wants to collect his signature. He's collecting his signature. Yes, an addendum signature. Yes, I will invite even Charity Aimbisiwe, the ED of SEDU, to kindly step forward and launch this report, as well as Mr. J.B. Waswa, a very prominent media personality, kindly step forward and launch Mr. J.B. Waswa, popularly known as Bluff, to come and sign on to this. See, everybody is clapping. Yes, after Dr. Sylvia, Charity will launch, and Mr. Gilbert Sendugwa, the team leader at AFIC, Africa Center for Africa Information Center. Gilbert recently just had their AGM. Please step forward, and you're going to sign on to this report. And I know the occasion is going on very well. Don will be issuing out a copy to each of the people that have signed on to this. So Dr. Don Rokale, kindly give out a copy to each of the people who have signed on to this. I'd wanted, with Cathal of the European Union, he was with me here. Where's the European Union representative? Kindly step forward and do the same work of witnessing the signing or the launch of this report. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So Dr. Don, kindly issue a copy of the report. The ambassador already has, Don Rokale, Sesegu, Mr. Tahiri, my colleague from Civil Source. Where is my colleague from Civil Source? Okay. Thank you so much. You're most welcome. Yes. Thank you so much. Please come right here, Malcolm, and sign on to this report, and also receive a honorary copy for the work that you do for HRNJ. Office of the UN, Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights, kindly have you come forward, and we want to say sorry about that incident when journalists were beaten in the face of your offices. You as the custodians of human rights under the UN, this time they showed you. And we call it showing you touch. Please step forward and sign on to this and receive a copy. And all of us will go ahead now and receive copies. Please sign on to this. And I would sign for and on behalf of my colleagues at the Secretariat. But also, I want media representatives here. One for Daily Monitor, please step forward and get a copy. One for NTV, NBS, step forward and get copies from us. I want to sign next to the ambassador. Where is the ambassador's signature? Here, yes. Eh? Of course, for very obvious reasons. Very obvious reasons. Yes. Moses Magola, where are you? Please come. That man, whoever has interfaced, worked with HRNJ, will tell you is one of the engines behind the success of all of us. Thank you, Moses. Please come and sign. For you, you will get copies from office because they're going to be plenty for you. Actually, you will be the one giving out. I don't want to burden you with taking a copy back home. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. At this point in time, Lutaya, come for NBS. Lutaya was beaten. You remember him in massacre. He came limping. He couldn't walk. Today, we are happy that he can ably walk. Please sign on to this. Receive a copy. He engaged his very beautiful girlfriend. So today is a very changed man because she said, I needed to be close to you. With that beating, I needed to do some treatment on you. So let's engage and really fast track these things. The corridors of power said those things, and now is a very changed man. Thank you, Rutaya. Thanks very much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have, where is the Development Law Associates? They have defended us a lot. A representative of the Development Law, kindly step forward and sign on and receive a copy from us, Development Law Associates. Where is the colleague from the Defenders Protection Initiative, DPI? Please kindly step forward. They trained us, they continue training us in both physical and secure and digital security in order to remain safe. Please step forward, receive a copy, sign on to this. And where is a lady, Sylvia Nancha, my Ogi, my friend for 25 years from Uganda Radio Network. Kindly step forward. We went to school with her. We've known each other for 25 years. Yeah, but somebody is saying we have not formalized. Friendship. Friendship doesn't need any formalization. That one is from Dr. Sylvia Nambiru. If there's anything for you to be, sign it B, sign it there. She hasn't. Please receive a copy. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much for this occasion. Thanks to the ladies and gents that have made this happen. I can never say thank you enough. And for the rest of us, sorry? Hey, Gilbert, I'm very happy you're back. Kindly step forward. Gilbert is one of our friends from the EU, very passionate about media rights. Kindly witness the launch of this report and also receive a special copy, but certainly will deliver so many copies to the EU. Thank you so much, Gilbert. Thanks indeed. And this brings a temporary close to the launch of the particular reports because we have to break for refreshments. When we finally come back, the MC will be ushering us into another round of discussion of what we have. Can I invite everybody that had received that copy to stand with us for a photo here with this report? Kindly carry your copy, come here, and we do a group photo. Yes, this memorable photo. Our children will say, one time we launched a report of this kind, and this will go down in their history, and they'll struggle to be like us. So whoever has received a copy, please step forward with it for this memorable group photo. They wonder that in this world, people used to put on masks, and they will be in shock how people used to live. Yeah, some people need to come this side, as long as you don't take my position here where I'm standing for very obvious media reasons. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I was worried that this man was taking over my job. Let's go for a break, guys. When we return, we have a plenary discussion and a panel discussion. Have a wonderful, wonderful morning.
Mama Worobalu, together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different man, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, I be pretty man no, and I'm African no. Fat to sing a magazine man now what to no calling no. And no what to lunda to batuli matuba za twanika tukuza. To fatuli mane to listen say no. Born in Africa, big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to say, me got somewhere to stay. Let me say to every night.
Imusanyu fole chechendi, okuwa mufiri kanga chirungi. Njogera se kweka yona jengenda. I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
In your right way, yeah. See, I want prayer to see how you rise to your place. Mama, where I want, Mama, where Mama Africa. Look around, see the beauty of Africa. Ain't no chance free like a bird in the sky, so high. Africa we free, you know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo, Africa my continent, the crowd of mankind where we come from. Sawa Saja Wangale, Uganda where we come from. Kila kokote ulipo, tuko pamoja Africa. You welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a Worobalu, together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different man, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, Happy birthday, no, and I'm African, no. Fatu singa magazine, mwana watu no calling, no. And the wafer tulunda tupu batuli matuba za twani katukuza. Tufata tuli mane tuli sense, no. Big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to stay. Me got some what to stay. Let me say to every night.
Imusanyu forex chendi. Okuwa mufiri kanga chirungi. Nchokera se kweka yona jengenda. I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day. And every day I leave, I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa. To be African. Africa. Part of your motherland. Africa.
In every way, I seek to walk in your right way, yeah.
See how I pray to see how you rise to your place. Mama, where I want, Mama, where Mama Africa. Look around, see the beauty of Africa. Ain't no chance
Africa, we free, free like a bird in the sky, so high. Africa, we free, you know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo, Africa, my continent, the crowd of mankind where we come from. Sawasaja, Wangale, Uganda, where we come from. Kilakopote, Ulipo, Tukomoja, Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balloon together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different man or are you the same? Do you need to fight or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, happy birthday, no, and I'm African, no. Fatu singa magazine, mwana watu no calling, no. And the wafer tulunda tupu batuli matuba za twani katukuza. Tufata tuli mane tuli sense, no. Big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to stay. Me got some what to stay. Let me say to every night.
Imusanyu forex olw'ekyo kyendi okuba omufirika nga kirungi njogera sekwega yonna yonna gye ngenda I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
In every way, I seek to walk in your right way, yeah.
See how I pray to see how you rise to your place.
Mama, where I want, Mama, where
Mama Africa, look around, see the beauty of Africa.
Africa, we free, free like a bird in the sky. So high, Africa, we free. You know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo, Africa, my continent, the crown of man can where we come from. Sawa Saja Wangale, Uganda, where we come from. Kila kokote ulipo, tuko pamoja Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balloon together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different mind of are you the same? Do you need to fight or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, I've been man no, and I'm African, no. But to sing a magazine, man, what to know calling, no. And the wafer to Lunda to Batuli, Matuba, Tonica to Kuza, to Fatuli, Manet to listen, say no.
Born in Africa, big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to stay, because I'm where to stay. Let me say to
imusanyu folekyo kyendi okuba omufanga kirungi njogera sekwega yonna yonna gye ngenda I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
like a bird in the sky. So high, Africa we free. You know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo. Africa, my continent, the crowd of mankind where we come from. Saba Saja Wangale, Uganda where we come from. Kilakote Uli, Tukomo Moja, Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balu together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different mind, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, I be pretty man no, and I'm African no. Fat to sing a magazine man now what to no calling no. And now what fat to lunda to batuli matuba zatwanika tukuza. To fatatuli mane to listen say no.
Big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to stay, because I'm right to stay. Let me see the way.
Imusanyu fole chechendi okuwa mufiri kanga chirungi njogera sekweka yona jengenda. I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
In your right way, yeah.
See how I pray to see how you rise to your place. I want Mama way, Mama Africa.
Look around, see the beauty of Africa. Africa we free, free like a bird in the sky. So high, Africa we free. You know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo. Africa, my continent, the crowd of mankind where we come from. Saba Saja Wangale, Uganda where we come from. Kilakote Uli, Tukomo Moja, Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balloon together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different mind, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, I be pretty man down now, and I'm African now. But to sing a magazine man now, what to no calling you. And the wafer to lunda to Batuli Matuba Zatonica to Kuza, to Patatuli Manet to listen, say no.
Big up to my motherland. Some people got no what to stay. Me got some what to stay. Let me say to
Imusanyu foreto chendi okuwa mufiri kanga chirungi njogera sekweka yona yona jengenda. I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
In your right way, yeah. See, I want pray to see how you rise to your place. Mama, where I want, Mama, where Mama Africa.
Look around, see the beauty of Africa. Like a bird in the sky, so high. Africa we free, you know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo, Africa my continent, the crowd of man can where we come from. Saba Saja Wangale, Uganda where we come from. Kila kokote ulipo, tuko pamoja Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balloon together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different mind, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, abibiri mono no eno mwafrikeno fetu singa magezi mwana watu nokoleno ene wafe tulunda tuvuba tulima tubaza twanika tukuza tufata tulima ne tulisensero
Up to my motherland. So if I got no what to stay, because I'm where to stay. Let me see the
imusanyu foleto chendi okuba mufiri kanga chirungi njogera sekweka yona jengenda. I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day. And every day I leave, I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa. Proud to be African. Africa. Proud of your motherland. Africa.
In every way, I seek to walk in your right way, yeah. See how I pray to see how you rise to your place. Mama, where I want, Mama, where Mama Africa.
Look around, see the middle of Africa. Africa, we free like a bird in the sky, so high. Africa, we free, you know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo, Africa, my continent, the crowd of mankind where we come from. Sabasaja, Wangale, Uganda, where we come from. Kilagopote, Ulipo, Tukobomoja, Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
I'm a water balu together forever. Nothing will divide us, no, 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 no.
Look around you, do you see a different mind, or are you the same? Do you need to fight, or do you need to listen and understand? Stand on your feet undefeated, joining in union as one hand. Different yet all the same, bearing the African name.
Mama Africa, pray one day Almighty just see you through, so that you overcome the bad times, cause this is what your people are crying for.
Hey, abibiri mono no eno mwafrikeno fetu singa magezi mwana watu nokoleno ene wafe tulunda tuvuba tulima tubaza twanika tukuza tufata tulima ne tulisensero.
Big up to my motherland. So if I got no what to stay, because I'm where to stay. Let me see the
imusanyu foleto ekyo kyendi okuba omufirika nga kirungi njogera sekweka yonna yonna gye ngenda I'm proud to be African.
I'm proud and I'm fearless, true to me daily. I never change and I never sway. I swear I will leave every day, and every day I leave I will stay true to you. Every time I pray, I'm praying for you. Africa.
In every way, I seek to walk in your right way. Yeah. See how I pray to see how you rise to your place. Mama, where I want, Mama, where Mama Africa.
Look around, see the beauty of Africa. Africa, we free, free like a bird in the sky. So high, Africa, we free. You know the limit is the sky. In Africa, yo. Africa, my continent, the crowd of man can where we come from. Sawa Saja Wangale, Uganda, where we come from. Kila Kokote, Ulipo, Tukoma Moja, Africa. You're welcome to Mama Africa.
Hello, hello. Can I call this meeting to order, please? Once again, thank you so much for coming. A very good morning. It's about 5 minutes to midday. So for the meantime, I can still use the word good morning until after 5 minutes off. Again, thank you so much for coming at the launch of the Press Freedom Index Report 2020. I think it's better for us to have a thought process around this report. May I invite a team from HRNJ to come and help me remove this, please? So that I can eventually, ask my panelists to come on board. May I also invite the team that is outside grabbing coffee to please come in with your cup of tea or something, and then we can get this started. We'll have this session for the next 30 minutes, and I promise you that by midday 25, we should be getting out of this place. We're already behind schedule. So without any further ado, allow me to invite my panelists this morning. I want to invite Charity Ahimbisibwe, who is the Executive Director of SEDU, to come and please take your seat. Let's give Charity some love. She's outspoken. May I also confess that I love her so much. She makes my shows, like she really, really gives me a good show. Thank you very much, Charity, for being here. May I also invite Mr. Okello Jabel from the Uganda Media Council to also please come and take your seat. We're excited to have you this morning, and we're optimistic that the Media Council will go so far to support the growth of investigative journalism. And I'm super excited to be inviting Alex Atuhaire from the Editors Guild that actually went to court and challenged the registration of journalists, accreditation of journalists by the Media Council. And I'm so happy that the court in the land actually made that, ruled up on that issue. So we'll see how these two can sit next to each other to talk about the growing investigative journalism. All right, I also want to ask Andrew Irumba to also come and take your seat. Andrew Irumba is a journalist. I also want to invite Daniel Lutaya. Where are you at, my brother? Daniel Lutaya is a newlywed, and we again congratulate you, Daniel. Daniel is an investigative journalist working with NBS Television. He is also my colleague and very good friend. Daniel, you're welcome. Daniel was on the front line of the reporting during the political times that we've just concluded, that's the elections. And, he witnessed something that I can't just describe, but he will certainly be talking to us. And yours truly, my name is Solomon Serwanja. We'll certainly get to the report and to dissect it, and you'll allow me to take my seat here. I hope you'll be able to see me. And then later on after this, we'll open it up to 2 or 3 people to make their contribution, and then we will have closing remarks from Mr. Sempala, and then we'll get out of this place. I promise you we'll keep this brief because I know you have afternoon appointments. All right, I want to sit where I can see you all. All right, let me start with, I just wanted to get your overall views on the report that has just been released today, the Press Freedom Index Report 2020, Resilience, Media in the Face of COVID-19 and Elections. But just for a quick preamble, people who haven't been here or perhaps who didn't take extra attention, the report highlighted 174 cases, which is 9 cases higher than that in 2019. Of course, 71 assault cases were registered, up from 26 in 2019. We also saw about 100 cases out of the 174 cases were committed by police, which is not a shocker for us who have been here. 31 violations were committed by the UPDF, which is also not a shocker. But also the other highlight of the report is that there were 40 cases of blocking journalists that were reported. And what else did I highlight? Yes, journalists undergoing trial in the court martial. I think I also noted that down, which is disturbing. So I'll just get some of your overall thoughts and context on the report that was presented this morning. I'll start with Mr. Okello. Each of us will have 2 minutes to respond to these questions, and then we'll get to the plenary discussion. All right, Mr. Okello, your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Solomon. Thank you. Allow me to remove this. First of all, allow me to thank Mr. Sempala and the entire membership and management of Human Rights Network for Journalists for this report and all the people behind it. I think it's a very good report, building on the previous reports that you've done. Highlights key issues that are still they are pertinent even as they happened in the last year, but even as we speak now, many of these issues, as you said, some of the journalists still in the undergoing trial, others are still in hospitals and so on. So it's timely and relevant. The only thing maybe I wanted to say is that I wish you had treated a bit of the context a little more, because press freedom does not operate in a vacuum. Because the press is just but a subset of the society called Uganda. I wish you had have taken a bit of time to look at a wider angle of the general human rights situation in Uganda, and then within that straight, the situation of journalists. I think it would have made more interesting reading, because the more we isolate violations against ourselves, the fraternity of journalists, the more we don't get the other buy-in from the rest of the community. So, okay, those are their issues, but the violation against journalists is intrinsically interlinked with other violations against the community. So we need to make that connection. The second one is the general political, the context in which we are doing our work. I was a journalist between 1997 and I started effectively being active in 2004. The operating environment then